Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 9 of the Planeswalker podcast. My name is Jason Florent, and I'm joined today by my amazing co-hosts, Seth Manfield.
Hello.
And Danny, the one and only Deck Doctor T-Law.
Hi, guys.
Do you like that? Today we have a bunch of standard for you guys, a bunch of historic. We'll go over the tournaments from last weekend, talk about the ones that are coming up. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Cool Stuff Inc., where you can buy, all kinds of cool stuff. They have literally anything you could possibly imagine in gaming. They got cards, they got miniatures, they got sleeves. Go check them out. They're an amazing store. CoolStuffInc.com for all of your gaming needs. They're also sponsoring our tournament coming up next Saturday, November the 28th. They're going to be throwing down $500 store credit for you to buy cool stuff with. And then we're going to be throwing down a little bit of extra things as well that we'll be announcing sometime this week. So be sure to check out our Twitter feed for all those details, and come sign up for our Patreon if you want to enter that tournament. So Danny, tell us about the weekend. You were hosting the F2K Invitational. Seth and I got to play in it. It was an amazing tournament. It was so much fun to play in. Give us a little bit of thoughts on that and standard, and how did your weekend go?
Yeah, it was a long weekend for sure. Lots of planning and then 11 hours casting the tournament. I loved it. First experience doing something in that scope. So I learned a lot behind the scenes and just how to organize things, and how basically have an idea and then push through to make it happen. So that was a long process, but I hope we get to more of those tournaments, and there's probably something bigger coming up anyways. The games were cool. All the games I casted, they were really interesting, and I have to say, if Standard wouldn't be in a place like this right now, 11 hours would be way harder than it should be, right? I mean, that definitely helped a lot, and people came with interesting decks, like Seth came with Mono Red, then there was Aaliyah with Mono White. There were decks, they were really spicy. Mati with a Mono Black Ugin list. I was really hyped to see those decks, and they did actually good, which is so funny, right? You would think like, okay, Rogues, Gruul, Esper, those are the 3 decks. But then there are some other decks. Suddenly there's a food deck again, some Mono White, there's a Timur deck. So there are so many decks, and I have the feeling like the meta is still so open, even though I think that the Zenith Sun Rogue list seems really strong. And so versatile. It's just one of the most versatile lists, in my opinion, right now. And we saw, I think, 2 or 3 of those in the top 8. They look really, really good. Also, we saw 2 food in the top 8. But yeah, I want to say again, congratulations to Krim, the Asian Avenger, one of our F2K people who won the tournament with a homebrew Demia
Control. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's the funniest is when I talked with him before, and he doesn't want to play too serious, but he loves Grixis and those kind of things. And when he is serious, he calls himself Simic Dave, which means he just goes to the Simic colors and plays serious. But here he just went for fun, removal, counter, and then win the game. It was amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm always even more impressed to see someone win with their own deck, like their own brew. It's also just harder, right? Like, you have to put in more time, you have to do all of this work and preparation to actually figure out if the deck's good or not. And sometimes you don't even know until you play the tournament. And so to see that was very impressive. I know he's always playing control, so he's definitely got more expertise in that sphere, because he's just control all the time, and that is something I can give him some props for. I also want to say, you did a really good job. You and Zabricus, and was there one other commentator? But anyways, you did a really good job, I thought. I know I tuned in and I was playing, of course, as you said. Didn't want to play Gruul, but mono red is kind of very similar to Gruul. I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to go because it's like one of those decks that I've played in the past. Of course, I played it in Worlds, right? How long ago that seems, but it was a lot of the same cards, and I was playing it, and I was hoping to play against Rogues. Actually, that was the I didn't get paired against Rogues at all, but I feel like that was maybe my best matchup, at least in theory. With like I main deck Phoenixes, you get Oxys after sideboard, you have a very aggressive curve, and so there's a lot of things that I like about that. Instead, I got some other matchups. Like I was surprised I went 2-0 against Esper Doom, which I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. The deck isn't that great or anything, but no, I'm just kidding. No, that's just a dig at Jason. But no, I went 2-0. I beat Esper Doom. I unfortunately had trouble against food decks. Because I started out 2-0, and then I got the Croaky's pairing, which was one of like I think if I win that, I'm just smooth sailing to top 8 from there. But he played it well. I think there was one attack that I made where I was like representing Cleave, but I didn't actually have it because the Cleaves kind of failed me at the time that I really needed them in that match. But yeah, my belief wasn't strong enough, I guess.
Yeah, interesting tournament, interesting weekend in general. And I mean, like you're saying, Seth, yeah, Esper Doom, it's always struggled against a lot of the tier 2 and especially tier 3 lists like you played. But no, I do agree that Esper, I went 0-3. I lost to Gruul, I lost the Mirror. And what else? I forget what else I lost to. I bombed right out of the tournament.
So just 3 bad matchups in a row. You can't really complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, Esper Doom's actually in a terrible place right now. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot clown pole.
Not until the weekend, right?
Oh yeah, once the weekend comes, so it's gonna be great again. But no, so this is the thing though. I mean, in the Channel Fireball Clash tournament, which was a much bigger field, so we can kind of glean a little bit more information than the smaller field from the FTK. Gruul got smashed, 39% win percentage, like below 40. It's crazy, and was the most played deck. Just got absolutely destroyed. And then we saw all kinds of decks come out of the woodworks. Mono Green Food, which perhaps was already on the uptick and has a good Gruul matchup, did very well. This Teamer Ramp deck, or the Teamer Adventures deck, that's been seeing some play, did quite well over the weekend. And then it was taken down again by Rakdos, though this time a slightly different variant with it was sort of like the mono red ramp into Ugin deck splashing black. Went like 8-0. I think 2 people played it and had a really high win percentage. So yeah, the format seems to be flipped on its head once again, where only a week ago we were kind of like, Gruul is just the best. Like it's hard to beat Gruul and still beat like Yorion decks. And now both Gruul and Esper Doom just got absolutely demolished after being atop of the sort of the heap, the meta for like at least a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks. It's great to see. I love it. Like the format really is just amazing, and it keeps turning. But it leaves you sort of scratching your head where it's like, where do you end up now? Or do you start to target food and Rakdos? Do you forget about Esper because it's gonna have a harder time? Danny's talking about Rogues being so good, and I think one of the things that does make Rogues really good is that it kind of always has game. It's always strong, and it's hard to target. And it's so versatile that you can build in a bunch of different ways. And people are kind of forgetting about it. It was the hotness like 3-4 weeks ago, and people have really let go of those escape cards and stuff. A lot of their rogues hate. So, where would you guys even start to attack the format? I'll give a little bit of what I've been doing lately. I played some of the Teamer Adventures list. It was really strong. I was really, really impressed by it. If anyone hasn't seen this list, it's basically what looks like a old Teamer Adventures list. They used to play Lucky Clover, but you cut the clovers, and now you have some Genesis Ultimatums and the dragon that shoots stuff, which like people kind of played a variant of that a while back as well. And man, I gotta tell you, there's been very few bad matchups I've found so far. The deck has all the, all the same powerful adventure stuff. It still goes over the top with the Genesis Ultimatum, and then it has all of the escape cards in the sideboard that you can play, like Ox or Spider. If you need to like combat more controlling archetypes, you can still play counter spells of your own to force things through. It's very adaptable. I was also looking at it. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this. It seems a little crazy, but it's literally about 11 to 15 cards off of an actual Gruul deck. So like literally, if you swapped out 11 cards, it would be like a Gruul deck with dragons in it. And if you swap those out for the full 15, it would actually just be a full Gruul deck. Which I like. We used to see transformational sideboards, but never into an aggro deck. Well, actually, I guess that's been a thing at times. But what do you guys think of that? Is that just crazy? Because the only matchup that I found to be really bad with the Teamer deck was kind of like the blue-black control deck that ended up winning the Fade to Karma. And in my games that I was playing last night on my channel, the Gruul deck just smashed that deck. And so I was like, could that be a thing? Could you actually just sideboard from this more like control-y combo deck into an aggro deck, or is that just crazy?
Yeah, I think that the Teamer deck you mentioned is interesting. And the fact that Gruul and Esper didn't do well in the clash. I mean, I still think Gruul is good, and I'm not gonna let one tournament dictate that. But at the same time, it's a rotation. So Gruul might have been bad this week. If I think that the mono green food has a bad matchup against this Teamer deck, right? So because you get to play the Genesis Ultimatum, so you're able to kind of change your Gruul deck, as you're saying. It's a lot of the same cards. You're able to change it and then actually turn a bad matchup into a good one in the mono green food deck, and the mono green food deck happens to be kind of a tier 1 deck right now. So that is a big positive for the Teamer deck. At the same time, I'd still rather be playing the cleaves than dragons. Like, so like I'll play Gruul against Teamer, and that's fine. Or I'll play even better. I'll play Mono Red against Teamer. But so like I think everything has its place in its home, and it's kind of this situation where you don't want to be playing what everyone else is playing. You want to be playing the deck that beats what everyone else is playing. And so I think this weekend it was mono green food. And I think that was like, I should not have been playing mono red for this weekend. Because I think mono green food was kind of the default choice. And I think Teamer, that makes Teamer, like Teamer would have been probably was the best choice for the past weekend, or one of these big over the top Ugin style strategies.
So yeah, we saw 2 mono green food also in the top 8, and I think the deck is really good. But against the new Rogue version, the one we talked about also last week, the Zenith Sun Rogue version, the matchup is really hard. Like I think Sarah's son stealing, I don't know, a troll or a hench or whatever is just absolutely ridiculous. So you don't want to mill, right, the mono green deck anymore. You just steal their stuff, which is even better, right? You just steal every big creature they have with your lull mages and your creatures, and then you're like, yeah, play your stuff. It's mine anyways. And also that deck feels kind of good against the Teamer deck as well, mainly because you have counters, right? Oh, I'm gonna play 7 mana spell. Counter.
Zarasan is an incredibly powerful card, and if we look at the evolution of the card, it was first played in the Rogues deck, right? If we look at Rogues at first was just a ton of Rogues. It was even like Rankles. It was just like most of your deck was just Rogue creatures, right? And then we got the Lurrus version, which and even the Shark Typhoon version, both of which can't really fully utilize the Zarasan. And so that's why we just saw like the card just not even seeing play. But the card is just amazing. And the problem was that the early Rogue decks were just misbuilt by a few cards. That's all. And so now you've come in with this hybrid version that still gets to play Zaracen. Like, I've seen versions just playing the full four copies because that's how good it is, right? Like, as you're saying, now you do need to get a mill off, so you need to have either the thieves you need to have a combination of things. But if you have a good draw featuring like an early rogue into a Zaracen, it's very, very good, as you're saying. Turn 4. Now, sometimes it also matters what you mill. Like sometimes I'll mill 6 lands and I'll be like, yes, like, that's awesome.
So what's interesting is it works also really nice with Brazen Borer. I saw it multiple times where I just get Brazen Borer back and you have the bounce available again, since there's an adventure side on the card, which looks really nice. But also what I saw is people run a Gatwick main again, also but it's 2, instead of maybe an Into the Story, because you don't mill as much as before. I saw that in like 2 decks. I think there was like only 3 Into the Story and 2 Gatwicks, and some have 1 Gatwick and 4 Into the Stories. The Gatwick is a really interesting card to me. It can go so well, but it can also be countered, right, and then be useless. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good against these green decks. Like, it's just, even if you're only drawing 1 or 2 with it, you can just know you're going to be able to play it. You don't have to worry about escape cards. And then also the tap effect, like alongside a card like Brazen Borrow, it's like tap and bounce or whatever. It can, like, it just stops a creature beatdown plan by itself. And also a lot of times post sideboard, it's like, well, what type of removal am I keeping in against rogues? Am I trying to kill this Gadwick? So, and it's just more reliable, as you're saying, than Into the Story in certain matchups.
Yeah, it used to be played a lot in the blue-white control, like back in the days, right? Eldraine set came out and you had all those Borers and the Gatwicks. And those 2 cards just feel so powerful. You can stall the entire board anytime until you steal their stuff. And it makes it easy to go through with your Saracen as well, since you tap the one that could potentially block your flyer. I think this is in my opinion, one of the strongest decks right now in Standard, if not the strongest. But that's just based on what I saw, piloted by really good players, right? But yeah, I don't know the Clash results. I guess there are also many good players in it, but sometimes it's hard to say which data is more efficient, right? Small sample size, better players, so like huge sample size. Yeah.
There were some good players in the Clash this time. There was, let's see, I think Andrea Mengucci played. Kavartek played, so I think there was some top players that were trying to get in on that last chance to qualify for that pretty decent money tournament. 64 players, $10,000 for first, not bad. All right, should we talk about it?
So when is that? Is that this?
That's this Saturday.
This weekend, and so you're playing in it, right, Jason?
Yeah.
Nice. Do you know what you don't know what you're playing yet, right?
Currently on the Teamer Adventures deck, I really like it. I think it's really, really good. And it hasn't even been like begun to be flushed out yet. The original list had 64 cards not long ago. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, finally I can also play those type of tournaments. I think I do some Star City games.
Yeah, so this weekend there's Star City Games qualifier for the next championship event, and like basically every weekend from now on into January is a Star City Games one. This one's going to be historic, so I'm going to be playing mostly standard, but luckily our Planeswalker team is working on a lot of historic, so I'm probably just going to take their results and just jump into a qualifier on Friday and then try and play on Saturday. So talk to me about historic, guys. The last that I checked in was before the release of Kaladesh. And like 4-color control was kind of like in Jund were sort of the hotness then. What do things look like now?
So from what I see, Sultai is still a strong deck. Sultai, or like 4-color, how you want to call it, is still a strong deck. 100% viable. Fatal Push is nice to have. There are not too many fetch lands though, which sometimes is a bit annoying, but it's just, I don't know, it's what the deck does, right? You do tackle every deck in some sort, but decks that surprised me were so far Mono Red. Mono Red, absolutely a house with Bomat.
Love
That card
Bomat.
Yeah, that card is sweet.
really sweet, yeah.
So
and then you
sweet.
have the Aura decks. The Aura decks right now are just ridiculous. Every time I play the Aura decks, it feels like, well, I cannot lose this game anymore. I have like this is my hand size, like all the time. You just have 8 cards, turn 2, that draw you a card when you play an Aura, which is you just have to mulligan, find one mana Aura, and from there you go, right?
How is the Sultai Auras matchup?
But that's fine. I mean, it's the same, right? So I know. So the Aura matchup was not too fun before.
You may be refreshing Danny's memory about one particular match.
My win and in that I lost against the Auras. So the trick used to be to force that draw spell, right? And then you go like, that's a good matchup for me now. And yeah, that's the trick, right? But now there are even more cards that draw you potentially cards just in creature. You have 8 cards on the creature side, which is really good. So I don't think that approach works. I mean, the Exile Extinction Event is still one of the hardest cards to play around as the Aura decks, because you don't really have an effect that deals with the global Exile. But besides that, I still think, even though that happens sometimes, you just play 1 card and you refill your board and hand so fast. It's absolutely ridiculous. There are 2 decks, I think, actually 3. There's the Mono White Aura list, which I think is the weakest. And then there's the Osorius Aura and the Orzhov Aura. The Orzhov Aura is the one that has the most game against the Mono Red decks, or against the creature type decks. And the Osorius Aura is a bit better against the Sultai list. I mean, obviously you have Spell Pierce, and then the other one you have the removal spells in black, and Thoughtseize as well. So personally, if you play one of those decks, you can do nothing wrong. I just think it's so strong.
So the new card draw engine you're referring to is SRAM,
yeah.
right? SRAM Senior Edificer. I do really like that card a lot. And that goes alongside your core Spirit Dancer. So you just have it's almost like having, I mean, it's not, it's a cast trigger also, which is kind of nice. So, well, both of them are cast triggers. So it's weaker than core Spirit Dancer, but that doesn't really matter because it just draws you more cards, right? So, and so now it's just that having that redundancy. Like a lot of the time with the Auras deck, it was, well, if I don't have my Spirit Dancer, the deck feels a little bit underpowered. So yeah, I've also thought that deck is really strong and it should see more play. I almost wish that Omnath was back in the format now, because I actually think that the Auras deck would beat the Omnath deck. Heads up, just because of those creatures and how little
it's actually true
removal that the Auras deck has, and so I think that Auras definitely has become a lot more powerful with that card.
Yeah, I think it has to be top 3. One of the Aura version has to be up there. Just like, also, if you play the red, you even if you play black, you have Eidolon, and you play the Eidolon, it's just also ridiculous sometimes because they kill a creature and you just draw another hand. It's so close to the Pioneer Orzhov Aura. So there's an Orzhov Aura and Pioneer, and you basically play all the cards except 2 enchantment. If you had those 2 enchantment, it would be absolutely ridiculous. But it's still really strong. The white, the blue, the Osorius one has 4 obsessions and 4 staggering insight. So you have even more card draw, right? You have literally 16 cards, and you need a combination of those on your hand, and you're good to go. If there's one time no removal, you just win the game. It's absolutely stupid. But yeah, I think the deck overall is also fun to play. I didn't like it before because, as you said, there was only like 1 card and it felt underpowered. But now I feel it's definitely really strong.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Seth mentioned, you kind of wish that Omnath was unbanned. One of the cool things about Historic is that like they can just do that, and it doesn't really affect too much. They could unban Omnath, and if it's like, oh, we made a mistake, you just ban it again. It's not like screwing with paper card prices, making people go crazy and lose money or anything. That's it's one of the reasons I feel like Historic is going to have some longevity and it's going to be around for a while. and that they can keep making, like, if historic gets too big, like they do, they can just make like a smaller historic, make it like a double standard eternal format.
We keep that between us, though. We don't mention Omnath getting unbanned.
In the circle of
That's
trust.
something. Yes. If you heard that, just wipe it from your mind.
You know who to add on Twitter now.
I never even suggested it.
Yeah. Okay. So Danny, you said that you think the auras, maybe the Black White auras, is like top 3, and Sultai as well. What would be your third deck in the top 3, or what are the other top sort of tier 1.5 decks?
Mono-red is just absolutely. I mean, I'm not even sure if I would put. I think the matchup against Aura with Mono-red right now is really good. So you can actually put Mono-red higher.
Good for who?
It's good for Mono-red. I think Mono-red.
What do you think about Chandra? You mentioned Bomat, but I'm interested to hear, because Chandra is just this really powerful 4-mana planeswalker. Do you think that is a card that the mono-red decks want?
Yeah. The card is really good. I saw it. The thing is, you have a 4-mana red planeswalker that impacts the game so much, right? So you have a board, and then you play the planeswalker, and most control decks or most decks at that point have a problem, right? Because Chandra gives you card, does damage. You can remove some creatures if you want to. The ultimate is not that important, right? It's just about the extra cards you get there. And I think you play it in a classic mono red deck. You play it. I tried a burn deck as well. I would say that's tier 2. But the classic mono red deck, I think is definitely tier 1 with Chandra. Yeah.
So one deck I've been playing with, because I wanted to see how it stacks up against these other decks, is the Marvel deck. So I've gone with the Temur colors. I've seen other versions that are maybe straight blue-green or red-green or whatever, but I think Temur is probably still the best, because you get to play, obviously, your Servant of the Conduits, your Harness Lightning being the premier removal spell is kind of the reason to be red. Attune with Aether, Aether Hub. So you've got all of these cards, but then you also have Whirl of Virtuoso, which I've been like, pretty nice payoff card as something to do with your energy in case you don't draw a Marvel. Because without that card, it's like, well, I have a bunch of energy sometimes, but I don't have a good way to spend it. So I've liked that sort of a package, I guess, alongside the Marvel. But for me, the big question right now is how you round out the deck, because you can play Ulamog, you can play Ugin, you can play those huge hits where, like, if you play the turn 4 Marvel, which is kind of the nut draw, spin it, bang, that's what everyone dreams of, right? You play the Marvel, you spin it, you get your Ulamog, you get your big thing, and then the game's basically over, right? You've basically just had your good draw and you've won the game. But the problem is that, all right, there's a couple problems with that. Number one, there's not really, in most lists, there's not that many ways to actually find your Marvel. So there's only 4 copies in the deck without a lot of card filtering. You got your Rogue Refiner to draw you some cards. That card's amazing, by the way. But so sometimes you don't have the turn 4 Marvel, and sometimes you don't have the energy for it. So, and then sometimes you just naturally you play these longer games where you end up, or your Marvel gets disrupted, whether it be by a discard spell or a counter spell or whatever. Or an artifact removal. Like, these are all cards that people are going to be playing. They were already playing those cards, right? So, and then you just top deck an Ulamog, or you top deck an Ugin, and you only have 4 or 5 lands, and there's not really great ramp outside of Servant, so that's kind of the issue. You can play Nissa, who shakes the world, but like, you don't have, like, it's not that great of a Nissa deck, so it's just felt kind of disjointed to me. And so that's why it's definitely not a tier 1 deck. I think people were expecting, oh, this is going to be insane, what, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's not too powerful for the format. Now, I'm at the point where I'm actually thinking about just moving the Ulamogs out of the deck, like taking out the big spells and just seeing if Marvel is good enough on its own, even if you're not spinning it into something amazing. Like, this could be maybe a Torrential Gearhulk deck, or maybe something that's a little bit more castable as your, like, big spin. So that's kind of what I'm looking into.
Yeah, I also think the Maul deck doesn't look too scary when I play against. It's like, okay, I mean, probably you're dead at that time, but you can try it. That's fine. So that's how it feels to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's been also my thing with vehicles. Like, I think a lot of people wanted vehicles to be amazing. So far,
Yeah,
okay, but
yeah. I
not
tried it.
anything.
It's like you look at Heart of Kiran, Gideon. I like it. And then it's like that curve, and then with other, it looks so nice, right, on paper, but it's just compared to other things, it's still weaker, which is ridiculous. I mean, 2/4/4 that attack you on turn 3 is decent usually, but yeah, I don't know. It's. I mean, the meta is still fresh and new. Also play the mono brown deck, mono artifact, and there's a combo where you win at turn 5 or turn 4. It's absolutely stupid. I mean, what's that?
The next deck I want to try is like either the Paradox engine deck or like just some version of maybe a paradoxical outcome deck, where like, because that deck used to be a standard deck where you just play a bunch of 0 mana like artifacts, you pick them up with your outcome, and you just you play Aetherflux Reservoir. I have a feeling it might not be good enough, but it also is really exciting.
I played it and showed it to some patrons. I have the list, and I won both games actually. I won against Oz of Aura and against, I don't know what it was, but it was a good deck as well. It's just absolutely stupid when you go off and you combo, right? It's so you play your entire deck. You play your cards. You just get all the artifacts you need, and then I pay 50. I have 50 life. I pay it 50 damage to you. Let's go. It's so stupid, and you just win in one turn. The problem is, okay, so in the artifact deck, you don't have lots of interaction, right? You just go towards your combo, and if they are on the play and they just have their really good draw, it is, I think, too hard to pull off. And there are not too many good interaction cards in the artifact deck itself, or in artifacts in general. So I think it's not tier 1, but it's a fun deck. It can surprise people, especially if they have no idea what's coming, right? And that's where it shines, because sometimes they tap out and you go like, well, I win now. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, nice. Okay, riddle me this. If you guys had to register a deck right now for the Star City Games tournament, what would you register and why?
I think it's one of the decks I mentioned. So I will not play Mono Red, because so I really don't like to lose against Werewolf Mono Red, and it happens too much, in my opinion. Sometimes when I watch Crookies play Mono Red in top 8, the decks he loses to is an Uro pile usually, right? And if you don't have your stop the life gain thing, the Uro deck takes over, and then you play 4 Gusts, and then suddenly you play Gusts main again, and it's just, so this is where I will not play the Mono Red deck, even though I think it's good. So I would go between the Aura deck, probably Azorius Aura, and the 4-color or Sultai control.
For me, it just has to be Sultai. I think that you can tune the deck. I think you can tune the deck to have good matchups against Mono Red. Like, I've really liked having Elder Gargaroth in my sideboard, and you know what? That's a pretty rough card to see for the Mono Red deck. But you just have so many like other interactive cards. I found that to be a good matchup for Sultai, even now with the addition of Bomats. Like, you have answers to that stuff. You can add Fatal Pushes, of course. I don't think Fatal Push makes the deck that much better or whatever, but it was already just a really good deck to begin with. It's like a couple slots. I'm not playing 4 push right now because, like you were saying, sometimes you can't turn it on at a key turn, but you do have the 4 Fabled Passage, of course. So yeah, I really like Sultai, and also against the Aura's deck, I feel like you have enough removal to be able to kill those early plays and Thoughtseize. So I think those are 2 favorable matchups for Sultai, and it's the deck that I have the most experience with. So being someone that it's still a relatively new format. Now, I do have a historic tournament coming up in a couple weeks, but right now for this weekend, it would have to be Sultai.
Yeah.
What's the historic tournament?
Isn't the Zendikar championship things historic?
Oh, is it historic? Yeah, we wouldn't know. We're not invited.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
yeah.
I think you're right. I think you are correct. Yeah, I would also play Sultai or four color. I guess people don't play four color now that Jund's not the big bad that it used to be. Yeah, and I one thing that I really liked about the Sultai deck is it's a lot more forgiving and kind of easier to play than it looks like on paper. Like obviously, like any deck, there's a ceiling, but I don't know. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was going to be this really difficult to pilot control deck, but like half the time you're just going, ramp into Nissa, drop something stupid on you, kill a thing. It's definitely not as unforgiving as some control decks of the past. So if anyone's not played the deck, you're maybe afraid to pick it up, I would say give it a try for sure, because I think it's it's very powerful and not nearly as I don't know, as scary as it might seem when you first look at it.
And yeah, the championship is both. It's standard and historic, so it's going to be a combination.
Nice.
And I know that there's some members of our Patreon who have gotten there recently and qualified. So there's a group in our that is going to be testing for that, which I'm really, I haven't really done much preparation for it yet, but it does seem like it's shaping up to be a really potentially two great formats for that. So I'm really like that's my big tournament coming up for the rest of the year. So that's
yeah, coming up soon, just a couple of weeks away. That'll be a fun viewing experience for sure. So speaking of decks that we're not seeing anymore that we used to, what has happened to like Goblins and Jund? Are they still around, or have they been kind of pushed out now by Burn or other decks?
So the Goblin deck, it's still a high roll deck, right? I mean, turn 3 Muxus, it's still something you have to fear from, but I think maybe it gets a comeback right now. I don't think it's as strong. I think Jund is still strong, but no one is playing it right now. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Jund. Now that you say Jund actually does sound quite good.
Yeah, right.
I think that people just got scared off by it because of
Pig.
The Yasharans, the pigs. Which I mean, I still went. I didn't even know what my cards did, and I went 4-0 with Jund in the
nice.
grand finals. So it's not even that bad against the pig deck. So, Jund is due for a big resurgence. I think soon.
I think so too.
Have you guys played with any of the new decks, the new Burn list or the Orzhov list? Have you played either of those against Jund yet?
I never saw Jund.
No, but I can tell you how the games go. Right, a lot of these Auras decks don't have much removal. Right, you're playing Priest of Forgotten Gods. You're playing Claim the Firstborn. So you're playing cards that are just naturally really, really good against the Auras deck. And I can't imagine it being that bad against the Burn deck with Collected Companies, with Mayhem Devils to ping down, Bomats with, and you can tune it. You can put in whatever you want to the Jund deck, but in theory, it's not something to be too worried about if you're the Jund player.
Yeah, I agree. Just on paper, it feels that Jund is definitely as a matchup against both. What I like in the Azorius Auras is you have the dive down spell pierce, right? You have some cards for protection. You can go with the blessing to give it hexproof and indestructible. You need to protect the way you play your aura deck. You have to be so careful sometimes with your core Spirit Dancer against certain matchups. You go like, okay, this has to survive, so I cannot play turn 2. I need to play turn 3 with a backup. And sometimes it's the way you play it is kind of awkward. It can be this really fast. If you see green, just slam it, right? If you see green, only green, you just slam and you have a big creatures then.
Yeah, but I mean, even those cards, they don't really answer a priest, right? Like
No, but you still go wide with the cartouche, right? You go wider.
Yeah,
than,
if you have a cartouche,
you play 4
if you have the
cartouche,
white cartouche, that's good. Yeah, that's true.
So the matchup, the priest is really nice, but you play, I think, around 16 creatures plus the cartouche, right? So you manage to sacrifice some other cards as well. But yeah, in paper, if you cannot stop the claim, I think you just lose the game. So that's the thing, right? But you can stop the claim. I think you play around the same answers to claim as they have claim. So.
And what about Burn or Sultai against Jund? I mean, Sultai started splashing white, so it could have Yarn for that match specifically. How does it stack up when it doesn't have that card?
I mean, I think that it's definitely better against the version without the pig, right?
Sure.
Than the version with the pig. I mean, that should be. I think that, but honestly, I think people are stopping playing pig a little bit, right? Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, sounds like Jund could be a dark horse, bit of a sleeper. I bet we'll see it pop up pretty quickly in the SCG qualifiers, and people remember that it's a deck that's just extremely powerful. How much Cage is seeing play right now? Is it still in the sideboards of a lot of these decks?
Yep. It's still a stable in the sideboards of many decks.
What else are you gonna play in your sideboard? If you're not a deck that gets hurt by Cage, you're playing Cage. Yeah. Like it's a free roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see also Rest in Peace a lot because the Arcanist decks, they have a little comeback recently as well. So you see the Rest in Peace, and they definitely do not like the card at all.
Well, we had I'll just touch on it. We had the Mox this past weekend, which was the Magic Online Championship. Obviously, we're mainly focused on Historic and Standard.
I did watch.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. It was on the Magic channel. And I've been a little bit removed from Modern and Pioneer.
I've still not played a single match, a single game of Pioneer. I wanted to, and just like, what happened in this format?
I played one tournament. It's fun.
Congrats to Michael Jacob for taking it down. He had some sweet decks. I think, but I don't even know if the tournament's going to be remembered for the.
No. Here comes
for that because
I was wondering if you were going to go there. Let's do it.
I'm going to go there, of course. So there was so there was a situation where it was Michael Jacob against Oliver 2, and so in the Magic Online, you can actually it's pretty somewhat easy to just direct chat. There's just like a chat thing, and so he's just like playing his deck, and I guess he's ahead on time, and he asks Oliver if it's okay if he just like, if he doesn't attack him with his Field of the Dead zombies that he's making, because he was just gonna like gain infinite life, even though he doesn't have infinite time on his clock or whatever. So Oliver's just like snaps it off. He's like, yeah, like I can win by milling you out with like some sort of like cryptic command loop, even though he's like never gonna have time to mill out Michael Jacob. He says that. And so then like they play on for a bit, and then Oliver starts attacking with the, with the zombies. and Michael's like, well, this is kind of like this is kind of not very fair. Like you said you told me in the chat you weren't gonna do it. And it's like, oh well, yeah, sorry, but I need to make these attacks in order to win.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, so I mean, and then of course by that point Michael Jacobs' infinite life combo was no longer around, so he couldn't start gaining life off the Heliod. So I was just like, wow, like I felt like both players made kind of messed up. I think this was a player problem. I think it was Michael Jacobs shouldn't have asked. He should have just play the game. Just don't ask your opponent. Just you decided to play an infinite life deck. Just play it. Just play Magic. Don't stop trying to bend the rules. Okay. Then Oliver too for agreeing to it, and then also going back on the agreement. I do believe that Michael Jacob, in the end, ended up getting the win because after Oliver killed him, he then went back and talked to them. He's like, I guess he felt bad or whatever. Which, okay, people make mistakes.
Hold on, though. So Michael Jacob posted this on Twitter, and it blew the F up. The Magic World exploded. Did Oliver go talk to the judges before or after that happened? That I don't know.
After.
After.
Don't know.
But
don't
but
know
the thing
that,
is, so in my opinion, like I don't get the Twitter thing. Like, so you play a tournament, there's money involved. You've super focused, right? Yeah, a lot of money. You want to win the game.
50K. So it's an insult. I find it insulting that they kept this much money. Yeah.
Okay. For you, it's super. I mean,
I won 10K for Mythic Championship.
I saw that
Michael Jacob won 50K.
I saw the Austin tweet. By the way, I lost it. You saw the Austin tweet? Did someone saw the Austin?
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Savage said, "Okay, so the winner made more than me, Seth, and K Prince, who won the three biggest tournament." Yeah. This is so ridiculous. But yeah, let's go back to the thing shortly. So I was shocked how Twitter handled this in the first place. In any competition in sports or whatever, the people who are on the field, on the pitch, and they are just focused on winning, right? They don't see what's going around them at that moment, right? And I think that's what's happened to Oliver there. He's just like, yeah, I want to win there. That's like his mentality, right? As like in a competition, you just want to win. Sure, you went back on agreement, but what the hell is that agreement in the first place, right? I was like, I will be 100% behind Oliver. I was like, holy shit, that's stupid. You go with a life game deck to a tournament, and then you supposedly win the game with infinite life. Since I know you don't win a game with infinite life in Magic, I don't know where that's like. Just in general, right? Like, so just play the game. I mean, obviously it must have sucked for him, right? So I can also understand Michael Jacobs' frustration there. But to be fair, I didn't get the Twitter hate on Oliver. I thought it was completely stupid, and many people like, yeah, but an agreement is an agreement. Yeah, but come on. I mean, that was just stupid in the first place.
So exactly, like when I first heard about it, and for those that don't know, also Michael Jacob had 9 minutes on his clock, and Oliver had 2, I think, when they made this agreement. Yeah. So like, you can just like time him out, do your loop. You can't kill you with damage. Like, play the freaking game. So there was like stupidity on both their parts. I think
it's like we're not watching this Magic Online tournament to like don't do this for coverage. Like I think they were trying to make the game something that it's not, just because they thought maybe coverage would look bad if Michael Jacob was just maybe he thought it would make himself look stupid if he was just gaining infinite life to time Oliver out. But like that's the game. Yeah. That's what you signed up for.
Yeah, that's actually the strategy of the deck.
I wanted to see that. Yeah. I actually wanted to see that happen.
Why would you play the deck if you don't do that, right? I mean, so
Magic Online is not paper Magic. Stop trying to make it paper Magic. It's not.
Yeah, it's different rules. You have a clock.
And then I was surprised there was nothing. Like I was expecting a DQ or something. I guess they didn't really have grounds for it, but it just looks bad from the judging perspective too.
They're switching it back and forth.
I think it looks bad.
Yeah.
It just looks bad. I think it looks bad. But
it's an interesting take though on both their parts. Because like Danny said, I don't know if you can fault Oliver. Like, is it scummy? Sure. But is it competitive for I mean, you can just period right there. Is it competitive? Yes, period. But also for tens of thousands of dollars, $50,000. Seth wishes you could win that much money. But like in competitive sports and stuff, there's rules that are supposed to not be broken, but they are. So when they say
it's like if you're playing football and you ask the guy not to tackle you, I'm still gonna tackle him.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know exactly. What I'm saying? Like,
exactly. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. It's like in combat sports, there's a thing where like people have done like really shady stuff where like you put your fist out to like touch gloves or whatever, and then like sometimes the gloves will touch or they won't even touch it. Bam! The guy will knock him out. Like Mayweather had a really famous one where like he puts both his gloves up, they touch, and he just like just bombs the guy into next year. And so when they say protect yourself at all times, they literally mean it. Or the bell will ring and people will drop their gloves and then they'll get smoked. Well, they're not supposed to hit you, but like it happens. So you need to protect yourself.
It's basically like Michael Jacob taking off his helmet for no reason. He's be like, "Oh, the guy's
He's
not
not
going to tackle me."
Yes.
Because he
Yes.
said he wasn't, and then it's just like smashed.
Yeah. He's like, I'm
You know what I'm
vulnerable.
saying? It's like-
I'm vulnerable now. Don't hurt me. Yeah. So come on, what are you doing? And like the whole thing, and then like also like, why is there even a chat? Like, just how about like that chat is the most toxic thing ever. People are just
Yeah.
insulting each other and saying horrible things. Maybe just get rid of that. You ever think about that? Like, is that really like we don't have it in an arena? It's kind of
You're a
nice.
You're a go.
You don't have to hear like, "You're so lucky. You're so freaking lucky."
Yeah. That's. I mean, that's a
every
classic,
match.
right? Yeah.
So maybe
I mean,
just get rid of that. I don't know.
yeah, but
Fucking
you're right.
Magic Online.
In sport, like in real football, like we call it here in Europe,
Soccer.
I mean, there are many personalities that on the pitch you think like, oh, they're just so arrogant, but they just want to win, right? Like Cristiano Ronaldo was one of the. I think even you should know that person, right? It's the most followed
course.
person on earth. He used to be like this. Like he wants to win. He doesn't care what happened. He wants to win. It's everything else is just whatever. I win this. That's his mentality, and people are always questioning it. But I think it's correct, right? I mean, if you want to be the best, you win. You want to win, right? What are those agreements and all those things? Just win. So I was mostly shocked of Twitter, but then again I realized it's Twitter, and then I was like, okay, yeah. Well, I hope Oliver didn't took it too hot there because it was really, yeah.
Magic Twitter is a dark place.
Yeah.
I coughed one time.
He was guilted into the concession. I wonder if he's actually happy.
The whole
that he made that
thing. The
concession.
whole thing is just very, very weird.
Like if I'm Oliver right now, I'd probably feel pretty salty about it still. The whole thing.
I don't know. I
'Cause
mean, he should have lost. He should have lost. Really?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think he would have lost.
I wouldn't feel salty.
Yeah, I think Oliver was more shocked about the entire Twitter thing, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
that was,
Well, he not only lost, but he also looked bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Even though, in my opinion, the entire situation was already a lose, right? And I think he did from a competitive perspective, he reacted pretty human, right? To want to win there.
Yeah.
So,
and Oliver's a good guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I just,
so I don't actually hold any, like, it's just a funny. It's kind of a.
No.
It's a thing that doesn't.
You know what?
Yeah.
Weird stuff like this happens all the time, and I just got reminded of a good one. Seth, I'm sure you have all kinds of stories from your years of playing. So this is one of my favorite ones, though. It's like one of those, like, how does this happen? So Jeff Cunningham, local Vancouver pro, longtime stay on the Pro Tour, was playing on the Pro Tour, I think, or maybe it was a Grand Prix, I'm not sure. We're going with Pro Tour, though. And there was a match that him and his opponent were playing. I think he was playing Psychotog or something, and like he goes to attack with his Psychotog, and then he's like, that's game, right? And his opponent's like, yeah. Because like Jeff is like, I can like pitch my cards, the Psychotog and whatever, and like that's lethal, is what he's saying. And his opponent, but he says like that's game, right? And his opponent says, yeah. So they scoop up their cards, they go to fill out the slip, and Jeff's like 2-1 or whatever, and his opponent's like, what do you mean? Like I won, right? He's like, what? Like, no, I won. He's like, no, like, you didn't have a lethal, and like I was just gonna kill you. He's like, what? No. And so they call the judge over. Bad. They call the judge over. And the judge is like, yeah, you guys are both F.
Oh my God.
I've always been waiting for that to happen. It's like the game's over and you just disagree on the result. Like someone's trying to. I mean,
there's no way to prove
that can be very scummy.
No
but in that situation, it's possible maybe that there's just a miscommunication.
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
possible.
Yeah,
I assume that's what happened.
Yeah,
but I'm also waiting for the day where someone is just complete scum basically, and you beat them, and then they're just like,
no,
you didn't beat me.
Prove it. What? Prove it. Yeah. So I mean, there are actually interesting videos on YouTube. Like, I mean, there are cheaters around, right? And like, I saw many things, and like,
here's my story that is similar to this but different. It's in a different setting. Finals of a Grand Prix. All right.
Wow.
So Grand Prix Kansas City 2013. I'm playing Birthing Pod, and my opponent's on Living End. And so I don't know if you know. You probably don't know that much, but about any of this stuff. But basically, the guy has a Fairy Macabre in his hand, which is you discard it to like exile 2 things from the graveyard, and I basically have the ability to gain infinite life, assuming that he doesn't use his Fairy Macabre that I already know.
Did you ask him not to use it?
No.
Verbal
So I
agreement.
I go to cast my kitchen things, and he just looks at me, and I just look at him like, yeah, I'm just gonna combo you out. I just gave him a look, like I was just go. All I did was put the kitchen back. I didn't even go to like sack anything with my sack outlets, bring it back and stuff. I didn't even do that, and he just offered the hand, and then I just instantly take the hand, and it was just like this moment, and then like like a couple seconds later, he just like puts his hand on his forehead, and I felt bad for him.
I mean, like, because you could actually, if you went through combo step by step, you could stop the midterm, right? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So it was actually,
I didn't even do any of that.
I mean, it was a poker play.
And then it's one of those things. They're like, okay, he shook your hand or he extended your hand, but what does that mean, right?
Well, it was on.
Does that mean a concession though? What
it was on video, so I just immediately packed my cards up.
Yeah, you're like, we're done here.
I mean, you pokered him.
I was
You
like, we're done
actually
here.
pokered him out there. You mind gamed him.
And it was So that was kind of the strangest ending to a tournament, to a match that I've ever experienced, and it was also in the finals of a. And I felt bad for him,
I mean, you really tricked him with your mind game there.
It wasn't even my mind games. It was mostly just him.
Stuff like that happens, though.
Yeah,
forgetting,
right?
Him just forgetting for a second that he had.
Yeah.
Like I'll do that, right? It's like maybe my opponent has an Uro in the graveyard, and I just forget to like ooze it.
Yeah, I
that's
would
basically
do it too.
the same thing.
It's,
I
think you use all your tools to win, right? I mean, if an opponent goes for it, it goes for it. It's competition.
How often on Arena are you like, oh, this is going to happen, or you didn't know something's going to happen, and then like something lights up, or like you can play a card, you're like, oh, I didn't know, I can interact here. Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. Sometimes Arena helps you.
Yeah,
Arena definitely helps you. Like having things like pop out of the graveyard that are relevant, or having things light up, or having them, the auto tapper or whatever. Like some
things
trigger.
Things trigger is a big one. People forget that stuff all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was totally actually there. It would have been fun though if it would have said, "Wait a second, just go for it." that on video would also been fun, right?
Yeah, and that's why you should. And that's why you should always like show me the kill, like actually kill me, show me. The most famous ones are like way back in the day before my time of like some combo decks. Where they didn't actually have the kill spell, they had to like discard it or something. So they don't have like they have infinite mana, and they're gonna go search for like some card that kills their opponent, but they don't have the card in their deck, so they're just like infinite mana kill you, and their opponent's just like, yeah, okay, they're like shake hand, and like like skip it up.
Like what if say you're playing the Kethis combo and you just like sided out the Jace or whatever, and you just like milled out, and you're just like, all right, like I'm just gonna go through, and and then
or your opponent like agonizing remorse out of your hand. They don't know that it's the only one in your deck, or like something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, I mean those things can
the
happen,
classic.
So. Anyways, I think we're gonna
like the classic. I tap my mana. I have explosion in my hand. Is also a thing I used to do a lot. I didn't have explosion, but I was slowly tapping all my mana end of turn, concede.
Or like a wilderness reclamation, you just go tap, and then your opponent. It happens to me all the time where I would just go wilderness reclamation, have nothing in hand, and I would just tap my mana, and my opponent would concede.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
I love it. It's happened so many times.
Make them have it. Make them have it. Okay, so as we wrap up here, just want to remind everyone that we are going to have our tournament for $500 of Cool Stuff Inc. store credit, plus some other goodies that we're going to throw in on Saturday, November the 28th. So next Saturday, free to enter for all of our patrons. It's going to be streamed on Seth's Twitch channel. So, you're going to have these two amazing guys commentating. I'll be there mostly chewing bubblegum and clicking buttons in the background. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure you drop in. I want to say thank you again to Cool Stuff Inc., our sponsor, for all of your cool stuff needs. They have literally just everything under the gaming umbrella that you could possibly imagine. Go check out coolstuffinc.com. Tell them Seth, Danny, and Jason sent you. And lastly, just want to really say thank you to our Patreon Team Planeswalker, you guys are freaking amazing. Literally every week I am impressed by you guys. All the hard work that you put in, all the results everyone's getting. Just absolutely fucking love you guys. And if you're not a member already of our Patreon, come join. It's like the best Magic community on the internet, bar none.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I've been a little bit under the weather, but fought through this, and I was really glad to have this cast.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks again. Really, I'm always there, and I love hang out in the Patreon just to talk with them. Like after a long day, I'm just going in and talk with the people, and they kind of know I will do that, so it's kind of fun. Sometimes they're like waiting for me at like 6 a.m. my time, which is kind of funny, and then we just talk a bit, and the people just are amazing. Like it's just more of a community that also wants to achieve competitive Magic level goals, and I love it. It's great. Yeah, definitely join.
Yeah, you nailed it. All right, guys, that's it for us. Awkward sign off. 3, 2, 1. See you next week. Bye.